Once again, all you citizens of the world, you brothers and sisters, your friends and neighbors, thanks for tuning in for another edition of Heartland at Home. This is number 33 for the week of January 2nd, and we've got a couple of wonderful guests. Actually, we have three guests coming on. We're going to have our pal Don Rose talking politics. We've got Tom talking with a guy across the pond over there in England, in London, Frank Macaron, reporting on Brexit and COVID. And a neighbor, Molly Burns, is going to fill us in on what's going on with the High Ridge YMCA. So first, let's start off with Katy Hogan and Thom Clark and myself sharing a little bit of good things that happened in our life this week. Tom, how about you?
Well, in the classic end of the year, starting new year, turning over a new leaf, I decided 6 years after retirement that it was time to get rid of some clothes. So 3 dozen ties, a couple of suits, a whole bunch of dress shirts, 2 jackets I wasn't wearing anymore, one a quilted one for winter, all went off to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. And, you know, it's very liberating. It's a very neat way to start the year. I don't have any more board meetings or editorial board meetings to go to, so I don't need all those suits. It was good to clear out.
It's hard to see you as a clothes horse, Tom, but when I saw that post, that's what I found out I had missed out on. The part of your life where you're a clothes horse. I was trying to think of the good things that for this week. And I guess because I am really understanding as a single person living alone and, old, that I'm going to be here for the next few months. I really want to have some projects by the end done. In addition to finishing writing for the book I'm writing, I'd like also to do more painting and drawing and cooking, which I got to tell you, there's coffee right over there. See, right over there. I'm going to
sneak off and get it, Kate. Go ahead.
Michael, do you have a good thing that you've been considering this week?
Actually, I have a plethora of things that I would say are good, but I'm going to share that I'm started a new book, and I spotted it at my friend Tom's house, and he brought it over to me. But I was warned by members of the family that I was getting it for Christmas, so I didn't start reading it until I got it on Christmas. And I'm into James Lee Burke's A Private Cathedral, another Dave Robichaux detective novel down there in New Iberia, Louisiana. And I'm enjoying it because it takes my mind off all the politics and that I watch and I read and listen about. I also am having a pretty good week with a consecutive run of days hitting the YMCA for a little walking, a little rowing, and some pumping iron, and once in a while in the pool. How about you, Katy? We already did you. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you how about me, Michael. I get ticked off every time I hear you going to the Y 5 times a week. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, I've offered for you to give you a ride.
Yes, you have. So what we now do in this show generally is report.
We got Tom. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Everyone is reported, right?
Yes. Sorry. We'll keep track if you don't, Michael.
I like that.
Now we're on to the head exploding portion of the show, and there are too many things. We had to cut some out this week, but dear to our hearts and something we've reported on forever is the environment, the Great Lakes health, and what Michael discovered in the New York Times op-ed piece written by Louise Erdrich this week was this pipeline that has been okayed by the Minnesota governor is not just another pipeline. And it's a breathtaking betrayal of Minnesota's indigenous communities who just turned up to help save Minnesota for the Democrats, by the way. If you missed Standing Rock, here's your opportunity. There's an encampment growing on the Mississippi River up in Palisades, Minnesota, 2 hours north of the Twin Cities. And they just plucked a guy who had been camped out for a week out of a tree in a cherry picker. This is not pretty, people, and it's wrong. It's so wrong. So that's making my head explode. What about you, TC? What do you got?
Well, the continuing pardon parade, and I'm afraid, we haven't seen the end of it. But one of the more egregious things was these 4 guys who are part of the private Blackwater, the Blackwater Four, they're actually called, who opened fire in a plaza in Iraq a few years back, killing civilians, school children. None of the victims, 14 or 17, had any kind of arms or insurgents of any kind. These are four guys who were pissed or something. Anyway, they were convicted of murder, and Trump has just pardoned them, like he has all his other good buddies. And it's really pretty disgusting. I think we need to talk about a Truth and Reconciliation Commission soon. Meanwhile,
So you, Thom, I want to know how you swung this. You just managed to tape this morning this conversation with this buddy, Frank Macaron. How did you guys run into each other? How do you know each other?
This is a friend of my daughter's who she met in Italy. He is a French citizen who works in London. And I thought it would be interesting because we've been corresponding a lot this past year after we visited 2 years ago in Europe. He was our host in London for a week. I thought it would be very interesting to talk about Brexit and the pandemic and what it's like to live in lockdown. And Frank agreed to join me. So here's our conversation from earlier today. I hope you enjoy it. I'm talking this morning with a colleague of mine from London. Frank Macrone has been a businessman. He's a French citizen. There's a little bit of Italian mixed in there. One of the fascinating hosts we had on a European trip a couple of years ago. And we wanted to talk to him about what it's like living in lockdown London during the pandemic while trying to run a business. Just a small assignment here, Frank. Really good to see you. What is it liking running a business in this pandemic with everything else going on in Great Britain right now?
We did I work in the digital field, so digital trade exclusively. So we did really well this year, but at the expense of brick and mortar that lost quite a bit of business. That's the result of stores being closed long periods of time towards April and May. Even June here, because they went into lockdown for later than the rest of Europe, but they left lockdown after the rest of Europe. And now again, we're in lockdown again. So that has an effect on brick and mortar business, but digital, we did really well. Nothing to complain about.
What was it like when Boris Johnson and others finally made an agreement with the European Union and what we know in the US as Brexit?
It was a relief, to be honest. But for people who are on the outside of this, objectively, it's marketed as a big victory, and Boris Johnson is very good at that. But this new treaty is a regression in rights compared to the previous arrangements. It's very, very important to understand that. There are no gains at all, other than the political control, which is what he wanted. They're losing out on a lot of other things. But I think your question is more what effect it has on my daily life or on the daily life of British people.
Yep.
The main visible change, I would say, is the end of the 4 freedoms.
Mm-hmm. Explain that briefly.
So the 4 freedoms came with being a member of the single market. You've got free movement of goods, capital, services, and people. So that's losing those 4 freedoms. That has the major impact. Although he's managed to negotiate a free trade deal on goods, not on services, there will still be controls at the borders. But there will be new controls at the borders, because he's decided to leave the customs union and the common external tariff. That's one thing. And ironically, UK citizens are more affected by that than me, surprisingly, because I made the arrangements to be able to stay here, applying for something that they call settled status.
Okay.
Which the UK government wanted to charge us for at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But thanks to a group of EU citizens called the 3 Million that you may have heard of, they managed to scrap that fee because it was still in the region of $80, which is not too much. But when you have a family, you have to pay for the children, etc. It gets a lot. And as they rightly pointed out to the UK government, the other European countries are not doing that to your citizens who live on the continent and decide to stay there to live. So they managed to scrap that. So I've made the arrangements to be able to stay here. Not much is going to change for me, but it's for them, that for UK citizens, that there will be the most changes.
We have friends who live in Germany who have a second home in the south of England, and their free movement across the border from France, picking up their favorite cheese on the way, is all going to be changed. And their local property tax, because they are not British, is going to double over the next 5 years under Brexit. So there are all sorts of intriguing changes for you as a European citizen, if I can put it that way, native of France, with this new change. Will you be able to visit home any easier? Because you
although I'm not too sure what it's going to mean for I don't know how you call that, the right to fly. One of the elements of the single market was it completely changed the rules for aviation. Any airline could open any routes they wanted from any airport, including a British airline, flying from point A to point B, like they say, point A in Germany to point B in France. They could do that. In reality, it hasn't happened much, but there is no control for UK airlines up until now. There were no controls in terms of the number of airports they can fly to, the number of flights they can have, their ability to set airfares, and all of that. And I don't know, I doubt it's going to stay the same. But to be honest, they came up with this agreement last Friday. It's 1,250 pages or something like that. We don't really know what's in it. And I've not studied that point, but there is a risk that they lose that, and the EU tries to rearrange things in their favor. And why wouldn't they? By sharing the capacity in seats more equally between UK and EU airlines. I don't know. Maybe that would mean less flights. I'm not too sure what's going to happen with that, but there is a risk, yeah.
So we are reading a lot about the vaccine now starting, and it seems like Britain is approving vaccines a bit quicker than the US. Are you going to get a shot? Are you waiting for one?
I'm very much down the line in terms of priority, and I was actually quite surprised because I saw the other day in the French press that only 40% of French people are going to get the vaccine, which means that the French are even more anti-vax than the Americans. I read something like 60% in the US.
Yeah.
Well, it's 40% in France, apparently. I hope it's going to change, but just to give you a difference between the two countries, 40% in France, 77% in the UK. So yes, I will get the vaccine, but I would be, I mean, God knows when it's going to happen for us. Like they have to do the +90 first, and then they go down, and then they do all the care homes and people with risk, like higher risk, diabetes, or that sort of thing. I'm healthy. I don't know when that's going to come down to me, but I will do it, yeah.
How are you spending your pandemic time? Are you running as much? Do you get out? Are you?
Well, that's pretty much the only thing we can do now.
Mm-hmm.
Go out for bike rides, go out for runs. Very limited in terms of number of people I can meet. I'm only allowed, in theory, to see, like to have a support bubble, they call that.
Yes.
I have to pick one, and these are the only people I can see. So yeah, you end up creating frustrations.
Yeah.
Like your friends are asking you why not us then? Why them and why not us? Or yeah, you've got to make choices, and yeah, it is what it is, and we all have to abide by these rules for the time being.
What's your reaction to our national elections?
Well, I followed it more than well, it's very important worldwide. I'm not sure how many Americans know how many people worldwide follow it. I was quite shocked actually by the way he reacted and went on stage and gave a press conference to say that the whole thing was rigged and not. with the count not even being finished. So yeah, it was quite shocking. And what is trying now to overturn the results. And because of what happened here in the UK with Brexit and the government, there was a lot of support for Brexit, but there was also a lot of opposition. And it was denounced several times, like how many MPs are voting against to overturn the results, whatever. But they were MPs and they were defending the interests of their constituents. And very often, we're talking about the president here. The president should be exemplary. And for me, it was very shocking. And I hope we never get that here.
Before we let you go, I'm curious if there's one thing you're hoping to be able to do, assuming 2021 is a better year and we get through the pandemic and the economy begins to recover, what's the one thing you're looking forward to doing when the pandemic's over?
Big socializing events, like big restaurants with friends, like all of us.
Yes.
You know, like big tables full of people, like laughing and talking, and then traveling again. That was made difficult. I thank God I managed to go this summer, but it wasn't. Like we had to change dates, and our flights were cancelled several times. Any flight I've done since July, I've had to rearrange twice or three times sometimes, with money like lost and having to claim refunds, whatever. So I would say socializing, no restrictions in socializing, and traveling.
Yeah,
that's what I miss the most.
Well, we're sure looking forward to being able to travel again and perhaps stop by London in our next trip over the big pond to Europe. Frank, thanks so much for joining us on Heartland at Home this morning. I appreciate your time and good luck getting through 2021.
Yeah, pleasure was all mine. Good luck for you for 2021 and with your new president. And Happy New Year. Well, in advance, I suppose, but Happy New Year and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, Katie, what else is happening on the COVID front here closer to home?
Well, the virus is running rampant everywhere. Hospitals are close to or over capacity. But what is most, and this is it's not in that portion of the show, but it makes my head explode. We continue to experience poor decision making and straight ahead criminal acts, one right after another. First, the slower than anticipated or explained vaccine distribution problem, which the president-elect has spoken of this week. These guys and gals came up with vaccine in record time. You'd think we could get it to people, okay? We've got all these roads and all these cars. Okay, a hospital employee in Wisconsin, ruined some 500 units of the vaccine on purpose. Michael, put your hand down. We're not in school.
I didn't mean to. I'm just
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking to be called in. Anyway, wouldn't they have someone watching the cache of vaccines that are saving people's lives instead of letting somebody who is God knows what trying to get back at somebody and purposely contaminate these things? And last but not least, by no means least, CPS is again trying to open up the schools as we speak. And teachers who have put in accommodation requests, some have been honored, but a large majority have been just turned down. And what we have to observe, once again, vis-a-vis COVID and all of its ramifications, nationwide, there is no uniform way to approach reopening schools. There is no uniform or national conversation. And when you look at all the wildly different ways that people are dealing with this, it seems to be more shaped by politics than by scientific data.
On the testing front, here in Rogers Park, our home base area, the Howard Brown Center over on Clark has been doing it for a while, as has the JCC over on Toohey. But we're really happy to announce that our friends at the new 400 Theater on Sheridan Road have turned the dark theater now into a COVID testing site. So there's a lot of information, and you can find that. You can contact them at rpcovidtest.com. And we're really glad they're doing it, and getting tested is important. And now we're going to have a little bit of music before we bring on our friend Don Rose. We're going to do a little Georgia on My Mind. Well, here we are, and we're really happy to be bringing on an old friend of ours, a current friend, a wonderful guy, Don Rose. We haven't seen you, Don, since pre-COVID when you were last on the show. And we're looking forward to a robust discussion, getting your insights and your predictions. So Tom was going to hit this off, but I'll do it. What do you think about the current occupant of the White House, and will he try a coup, as suggested by General Flynn? What's your take on the shenanigans that we might expect in the next week or two?
I wish I knew. Predicting the unpredictable is beyond me. There's things unfolded that I could never have imagined happened. He seems to be calling, by implication, for some kind of action on the 6th. He signs these things off by, come on, wait and see, boy, it's going to be good. And that would seem to be a signal to those militant groups, right-wing militant groups like the Proud Boys, to be there. And when you get guys like that there, you never know what's going to happen, whether it's planned or not. I somehow have in the back of my head that he is testing things right up to the limits of violence, and will probably back away, but you never know, and you never know what's going to happen right above that. You get these goofball congressmen who are going along with his notion. They're not quite saying tremendous fraud has been committed, but they're looking for the integrity of the election. You got this young guy from
Missouri,
Wally, who is going to be their Senate contact. The situation was just made for some young presidential aspirant to jump in and become suddenly famous. This is clearly a guy who, he's a former attorney general, state attorney general, and Yale Law School grad. He knows that this is ridiculous, and he never quite commits himself to the lies that his hero is telling him. But he's walking that edge, and some of this is really just beyond me. I've always been a what one might call a conspiracy theorist about what he might do or what is behind him, and some of his goofball.
So I'm wondering, Don, I'm sure that you're following the Georgia election very closely.
Yes.
And that's in the midst of still continuing charges of election fraud. I can't believe some of the obstacles that people have already voted have to go through just to cure their ballot. How do you think things are going to turn out in Georgia? What are you hearing?
Well, I would like to say I am modestly optimistic, but hold back a bit. Remember, this is still the South, and when some people were looking good in the South at one point in Mississippi and in North Carolina, the old South caught up with them. So I have to put that admonition in. All the polling that we've seen suggests that it is virtually a dead heat. The last polls I saw show the two Democrats ahead by fractional points. And the overall situation with chaos going on in the Republican Party, Trump yelling back and forth with the governor and with the attorney general and the election guys, that chaos would also suggest that it will cost the Republicans a point or two or three. But this, as I say, this race is so tightly within the margin of error that, it's a fool's errand to make a prediction, whether prediction is based on the head or heart. But with my heart, I'd say, as I say, I'm cautiously optimistic, but that's the best I can say.
I'm with you on that, Don. It would be such a miracle if both of them clearly won on election night. Dancing in the streets. Bye-bye, Mitch McConnell. Let's bring it a little closer to home. You were, I think you were a Lori guy, if I remember
Absolutely.
correctly. All right. So how's Mayor Lightfoot doing? And did you ever expect to see the city, the county, and the prosecutor's office all led by women in our region?
African-American women.
African-American.
At that, yes.
And the city, the county, and part of the state, it's just amazing.
Yeah. So let's get back to Mayor Lightfoot. How's she doing? What do you think?
I think she's made a number of mistakes with which I disagree. She's in deep stuff because of this episode, this horrific episode.
Yeah.
I think she's acknowledged her own culpability in it and is trying to make amends.
Yeah.
She's got more grief on her hands this past year than any mayor has had in my memory. And in the course of that, I think has handled things passably well. Although I would argue with a number of her decisions. If I was on if I was on the city council, I would probably, in many cases, have voted with the Socialist Caucus, not so much to spite her, but for the record, unless that vote would have tipped the balance, because I think she deserved the support of the things she went after. And if you make a symbolic vote in favor of more money, whether that money is feasible or not, you make that vote. I think her battle with the her battle with the teachers union is more problematic. They clearly have gone after her from the beginning, and you knew there was going to be a strike no matter what the initial bargaining was, and you knew it was going to last 2 weeks before the insurance ran out. The union is right about some things, like school closing. I wrote an op-ed, which some of you may have seen, saying put off the school openings until the spring because we're going to be in the middle of a surge.
Right.
And why take the risk for a matter of a couple of months?
Don, you just alluded to something we wanted to ask you about, and I know we're going to get to that next. One of the things that is age-old problem for us progressives is the dilemma of development, community, neighborhood development versus gentrification, and where that line gets crossed. And we're in the 49th Ward. We've got a pretty decent alderwoman who's been doing a very open process for this lot over on Howard Street. But I do hear some of the young progressives being a little critical of, designing something that will be for what we used to call yuppies. I don't know if they have a word for it now. I think they call, I think it's, what is the
Hipsters?
word? Huh?
Hipsters?
No, hipsters is, anyway. So how do you see that playing out with, places like, Rescoville and the other place over on the river there, having already been given a lot of money, where the rest of the city really needs some very pinpointed development. Any thoughts?
Well, I'd almost have to look at it as case by case. And, I am not totally familiar with enough of the economics. A few cases I've examined, over the last year or so, I have tended to agree that economics is the problem, and she's being cautious within that. Obviously, in some of these local issues, she might wind up doing the right thing, going along with the community, and she might not, and there'll be a battle. And I'm going to pass judgment based on whatever.
It one of the things that I guess rubs me raw Don, on this development question is, on the one hand, Lincoln Yards gets a $1 billion TIF, and then General Scrap Iron is moved to the southeast side, already environmentally challenged. And, that decision hasn't been finally made, but the state passed off. One could call that some state environmental racism in the way they do zoning and all that. Why is it that we give away so much on one hand for yuppie housing, let's call it that for the moment, and on the other hand, dump on communities that already have significant environmental challenges to cope with?
I wish I could give you the answer as to why it is. It goes that way, and I disagree with a lot of that. I thought she got off on the wrong foot on Lincoln Yards from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so told her. And I don't know what was behind it, other than the fact that she did not want to face a defeat when she first started out. I am hoping that she is going to reconsider a couple of the campaign promises that she broke, such as the one around the Obama monstrosity. I'm not a fan of that piece of architecture. I'm not against a memorial for Obama, but I think that's a monster.
What are they building there? An arena?
I wish it was an arena. It just looks like, something that might have been the start of another version of 2001.
I want to return to the recent budget vote before we move on to some other issues. Did you find yourself startled by the actual vote, 29-21?
No, I figured she would be able to put together a majority on it. And I knew it was going to be close. It could have been 26-24. But I think the budget, unfortunately, was necessary. Whether you want to see the tax increase, I certainly don't want to see it. I've got a 3 flat. I've got to pay taxes on, and the people who voted against it were divided into 2 pieces. One who were just voting against taxes, and others who had specific allocations that they thought should have been different. If I were in the council, I would have voted for it. I think your alderman did finally, did she not?
Yes, she did, and she's taking some heat for it. And our neighboring alderman, Andre Vasquez
did also.
They want to drive him out of Democratic Socialists for America because of.
Oh my gosh! What a threat for him! What a threat! Sorry.
Michael?
On a similar note, I got three little quick ones for you, Don. Will Ed Burke ever face a jury? Will Madigan ever step down? And which alderman is likely to be indicted next?
Well done, Michael.
Well, with such a wonderful array, at least I would say at least 30 potentially indictable aldermen. I hate to give one all that credit. I do think they will finally get to Burke, and I am beginning to think, for the first time, that we may see Madigan stepping down. I've long been one of those guys who say that Madigan is going to go scot-free until he's carried out feet first. But I think there's a little more ferment than I've ever seen there. So I would say it's by very narrow odds that I think we will be Madigan free by the middle of next year. Can't make the promise. And yeah, they'll catch up with Burke. I do not understand all the intricacies of the indictment. We knew the facts of that years, long before it broke. Laurie still had contacts when she was running. She still had contacts within the DOJ that gave her some hints as to what was cooking. And I just, other than the fact that they had to break it a little sooner than they liked because of the disclosure of our friend from the 25th Ward, they were still trying to get their ducks in order, even though they were pretty sure they had them. So they're looking for something as close to airtight, and I think the case can be made.
Another question, Don Rose. With the coming of the new president, your thoughts on the challenges he faces and how progressives can be supportive while pushing him to the left?
Well, he's got some horrendous challenges. The first one is what might call an unforeseen or unexpected challenge in just dealing with the COVID. I mean, this is a horrendous job, and they are giving him absolutely no help. Of course, they've been no help on it. They have abandoned the fight, which makes it twice as difficult for him to start almost from scratch curing it. So he's going to be busy on the one hand, just as Laurie suddenly had this whole new development that mayors had never had to face before. And that's going to preoccupy a lot. I think he's going to spend more of his time, more of his non-COVID time, trying to rectify some of the foreign entanglements and re-ally our allies to the extent he can. And then we have to recognize that that's where most of his time and energy is going, and just start pushing. We've got to push the left, continue on healthcare. I don't think we're going to see single payer, but we ought to see a strong public option. I think that's all that's feasible. And much of the potential progressive agenda, I think the environment or infrastructure will be one area where he may be able to make progress, and we can keep pushing on that. So infrastructure is the one area where even if we have a Republican Senate, we may be able to make some headway. So we've got to push on that end. Of course, if we've got a Democratic Senate, the game changes and we can push a lot harder on more left issues without, calling him a dirty traitor,
Given the politics, what you just referred to makes me think about how few actual leaders we have in the Congress that people across the nation actually respect and recognize as leaders. For example, in our own Illinois delegation, we've got Dan Lipinski voting against the stimulus. Next month, Marie Newman comes in and will be a fresh voice. But what about our granddaddies that are here, our grandfathers of the progressive movement? Who takes over for Bobby Rush, say, for Danny Davis? And even when it's time, Jan Schakowsky. Are we building for the future in terms of what you just referred to as needed to press a president or even a senator into right action for the people? Have you seen people building for the future in the Democratic Party locally?
I have to say I have not, but you never know how people are going to emerge. We're still holding on to the leaders of what used to be the independent movement, even though they're no longer, some of them like Bobby are no longer quite the heroes that we hoped they would be, to be gentle.
Thank you.
And I haven't seen. I've seen people making the play, but I don't know who is going to emerge. I think we were very fortunate that Jan, when she came in to an acknowledged liberal seat and was going to be watched, was successful in moving up that kind of leadership. Where it comes from next, it's hard to say. The one guy I seem to like a whole lot right now in our city council is Matt Martin, who I think possibly has a future. Seems to be, have his head straight on and isn't overplaying his hand. Beyond that, I can't anoint a leader, unfortunately, and they'll have to pass my muster under very strict standards.
Don, it looks like Illinois' population continues to dip, although Trump didn't get the census done in time. It's likely we're going to lose not one, but two seats in the House of Representatives. How do you think that's going to all sort out? Who do you think is going to be doing the redistricting? Do you have a sense about which seats might disappear?
Well, I think part of the answer to that depends on whether we've got Madigan or not. There is no question that Madigan is a genius at reapportionment. He's the best map maker and map enforcer we've had, and I don't know if there's anybody in the city council, in the legislature, with the same set of skills and talents. Now he may, if he's with us, I don't know how he sees things. I suspect they might lose Newman's seat. That's just a dark thought I have.
Revenge?
I'm sorry?
Some kind of revenge or?
No, population change.
Population change, because, it's very little in the city and a lot of the suburban area out there. They might be able to squeeze out a Republican seat at the south end of the state. But I have not examined the whole population, beyond our area enough to say which one or who's going to get the squeeze. Or we may wind up with some still a marginally held Democrat while losing, make one of the Democrats more marginal while losing somebody down there.
Don Rose, it's always great talking to you. We want to thank you for joining us today. And I have one more softball question. And that would be, during this time of the pandemic, what have you been doing to get through it in terms of books, hobbies, crafts, pretending you're at one of your beloved restaurants in France or here? What are you up to and how are you taking care of yourself?
Well, I have one advantage in that I've always worked from home. So not leaving the house is not something new to me. And, spend my days doing a little more reading. But if you want to know the truth, the thing that's got me through this year is a new girlfriend who I met just before the pandemic started.
What a lucky guy.
You are too much, Don Rose. You are too much. You're like a role model for us singletons. Well, God love you. Stay safe and stay well. We will see you on the flip side.
To all of you and all our viewers and readers and allies, thank you.
Right on, brother.
Thank you, Don.
We'll see you.
To our listeners and those of you who can actually wind up seeing it on YouTube, you may recognize a theme emerging. We're going to take another musical break and come back with Molly Burns on the High Ridge Y. Listen up, folks.
Leads right back to you. Talking about Georgia. Hey, Georgia. Yeah. No peace. No peace. Just an old sweet song. Yeah. Keeps Georgia on my said that old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind.
We're now going to talk with a neighbor, Molly Burns, who is working with a group of neighbors to try to save the High Ridge YMCA. Molly, thanks for joining us on Heartland at Home. When did you find out about the YMCA closing, and what are you trying to do about maybe reopening it?
I only found out taking a walk outside. One of my neighbors told me, and it was right before Christmas, so maybe just about 10 days ago. I've been a member for over 30 years. We never received a letter or any kind of formal notification to let us know, even though they've been taking our membership fee out every month. So she is gathering people. We have a very diverse group that goes to that Y, young and old, lots of parents of small children that love the swimming lessons. So we're trying to spread the word in the neighborhood. They have a Facebook group, Save the High Ridge Y. We also have a Google group, Save the High Ridge YMCA at googlegroups.com. But it's difficult to spread the word, obviously, with COVID and it being the holidays and cold weather, et cetera. But this was done without really any input from any of the members. So we're hoping that the Metropolitan YMCA will meet with us. We'll hear how important the Y is to so many of us in the neighborhood. It's one of the areas that we can intersect, and it's kind of a glue that holds us together, and it's a great asset in our neighborhood that many neighborhoods don't have and that we can't find anywhere else except at the Y. So we're really hoping that the Metropolitan Y will meet with us and listen to our concerns and how much the Y means to us.
Any understanding as to why we all found out about it as a fait accompli when at the same time you just described?
Katie, I don't know. One of our group, who is a professional journalist, she kind of thinks that they're doing it, in the cover of darkness. They used COVID and the Christmas Hanukkah holiday to kind of sneak this out. And what's really sad is, for years, that Y was kind of the neglected stepchild. It was very disinvested. They never painted it. The locker rooms were crazy bad. But we all laughed and we all paid our dues and we all loved the pool and we loved the staff. The staff has always been fabulous and unfortunately underpaid. And then finally, they kind of like redid the workroom, redid the playground, redid the locker room after years and years and years of disinvestment. So I think this feels like a slap in the face to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I really see this as a regional public safety issue, besides being an important daycare center and a summer camp center. The Park District can't do it all, but have you talked about the Park District taking over this public infrastructure opportunity?
Well, wouldn't that be wonderful? Because there really are no pools like that. And we have the big Rogers Park that the YMCA has used for their summer camps for years. Apparently somebody, I think Deborah Silverstein did talk to the Park District like last weekend, and they said they did not have an interest or they couldn't take it over, which is really sad. I don't know if we can keep pursuing that. We hope that the neighbors who are just finding out now, will please try to find out more. Save the High Ridge YMCA group and try to help us.
Well, Molly, we appreciate you taking some time out on a holiday weekend to brief us quickly on the situation at the High Ridge YMCA. And as you suggested, people can follow up by taking a look at your Facebook group. And are there any other ways they can plug in, or something in particular you'd like them to do in terms of contacting the Y, or for that matter, the Alderwoman?
Contacting the Alderwoman would be great. And a lot of people from the 49th Ward and the 50th Ward and a lot of people in Southern Evanston come to our Y. I've met many friends, throughout the years there. And what's great is even if you move away and you come back, you see people from 20 years ago. You can, join a yoga group and there's somebody you were with 20 years ago and maybe at a water aerobics class or something. So, it's been just wonderful for our community. I guess the other thing is they are doing a very short Google group kind of petition, and that's save-high-ridge-ymca@googlegroups.com.
Cool. Good.
Good. Well, thank you again for joining us, Molly, and we wish you a well and safe new year, and good luck in this quest to reopen the Y.
Save the High Ridge Y.
Thank you, Tom, Michael, Katie. I appreciate it.
Wow. We love the Y so much. And when Molly was talking about that, it reminded me of the Lincoln Belmont Y. And I love the part where she said, 20 years later can pass and you can go there to your yoga class and see, old buddies. And I think that's what people are mourning is as community centers close or disappear in this time of COVID. It's like, what will we have when we come out? But one thing we will have, I love that Don Rose mentioned it. I mean, we've got the Obama flipping extravaganza on the South Side about to break ground, maybe, God knows. We do have pictures of it. And I love that Don Rose brought it up, because what exactly is Trump's library going to look like?
I understand it's going to be set up in the gift shop at Mar-a-Lago. The Trump library will be up close faster than the Obama Center, I'm afraid, the way things are going. But part of it, of course, is that he only has to store 2 boxes of 2 boxes of one-page security memos he never read. So I think that it'll be interesting to see the race here between the 2 presidential centers and see which one actually gets built and used the first.
Yeah. Okay. So right now it's time for people to consider getting their Christmas trees down. I've so enjoyed mine. Here, I'm going to show it to you. Yay! Christmas tree. And you can see Michael's. But what some people may not know is that if they put their Christmas tree in the alley, it will not get picked up by the normal garbage folks who apartment buildings hire to do their garbage. So the city does tree recycling, and the dates this year are January 4th to the 18th. Locally, there are like 20 some parks that take them, and you just look at the Park District site. Locally, ours is at Warren Park or over at Margate Park in Uptown. And after January 6th, those parks and 4 others will give you mulch when you bring your tree. first come, first serve on that. Take all the tinsel off. It's got to be bare, but recycle your tree. Be good. Hang out with other Chicagoans. And finally, in our last section, we do our in memoriam. I know that we've all been touched by the kinds of things that I think they do it on Channel 11 at the PBS NewsHour. When she covers the people who have died from this pandemic, we have lost some beautiful beings. And one that happened just recently in our community was the loss of Rich Means. Rich Means was the election attorney back when I started working serious elections for Harold Washington, and we had serious battles to fight around the systems of getting on the ballot, around the systems of challenging, all of those Byzantine kinds of areas of election law, which we were soon to become much more familiar with. Rich Means was kind of the way in, and he never stopped. He continued to serve the community with his brilliance and his law degree right up until COVID took him. And we're very sorry for that loss. We also want to say mwah, big kiss and hug to Barb Engel. Her mother has passed over the Rainbow Bridge. Frida Harris Engel lived a full and incredible life as an artist, activist, and Californian, and we bless her in her transition.
I'm very sorry to report two people passing in the last couple of weeks. One would be Peter Solt, who was a longtime artist in many wearing different hats. He was a key artist for the early days of the Seed newspaper. He actually did the buckwheat pancake back cover of the Heartland Journal years ago.
Beautiful.
And many of you may have taken a puff of something using a job rolling paper that he designed for Don Levin, and from Adam's Apple. And we're going to miss you, Peter. You were a hell of a guy. And I know you loved animals, and so you're probably romping with some of your earlier dogs. And I just learned that Gary Daly, better known as Mickey Daly of Rising Up Angry, a member, an organizer, an activist, he just passed away. Neither Peter or Mickey was because of the virus, but other things. And Mickey worked in the legal program. And if you look at Peter Kuttner's film Trick Bag, which you can get with Kartemquin, there's a whole segment of Mickey talking in there about some stuff. So rest in peace, all of you people who did great serving the communities that you lived in and beyond, and have a good time up in heaven.
As we start a new broadcast year, we want to thank all the people that make this show possible. Luis Mejia helps us with our editing. Lynn Orman Weiss is our music producer. And we want to do a special shout out to all the videographers and editors, many of whom are Loyola interns over the last many years, who captured the sound and video that helps us to deliver this weekly banter and other stuff to you on Heartland at home, as well as live from the Heartland.
And I want to also let people know the reason that we have a theme today is that we're hoping that Georgia comes through for all of us next week. So keep Georgia on your mind and in your prayers as we say hello to 2021, and it can only get better, right?
Let's hope so. So Ray Charles is taking us out. And what do you say, Katie?
I say I love Ray Charles.
How about saying do good in the world?
Okay.
The world needs all the good we do.
All power to the people.
Amen.
See you next week.